The City of Neenah is pleased to provide video recordings of City Council meetings. Neenah residents can get information about City Council meetings, City Committee meetings, meeting agendas, and other documents from the City website, www.neenahgov.org. Neenah residents can express their opinions about city issues by contacting the mayor's office, contacting their city alderman, or completing the electronic feedback form on the city website. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited.
Good evening and welcome to everyone who's here this evening. I'd like to call to order the City of Neenah's Common Council meeting for February 7th, 2024. We will start with a roll call. Please indicate your presence on your roll call device and the clerk will call the roll.
Alderman Boyette.
Here.
Erickson.
Here.
Hillstrom.
Here.
Drum.
Here.
Steiner.
Here.
Stevenson.
Here.
Skirms.
Here.
Weber.
Here.
And Borchard is excused.
Alderman Boyette will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. The first item on the agenda, introduction and confirmation of mayor's appointments. There are no appointments this evening. The next item on the agenda, approval of the council proceedings for January 17th, 2024 regular session. Is there any objection to unanimous consent of approval of those council minutes? Seeing no objection, those minutes and proceedings are approved. The next item on the agenda is the public hearing, which is considering Final Resolution 2024-01, special assessments for installation of sanitary sewer laterals and water services on Belmont Avenue, Stevens Street to Cedar Street, Belmont Court, Belmont Avenue to Terminus, Cedar Street, East Doty Avenue to Winnebago Heights, East Doty Avenue, Commercial Street to Pine Street, North Street, Green Bay Road to Western Avenue, Quarry Lane, Higgins Avenue to Reed Street, Stevens Street, Belmont Ave to Winnebago Heights, South Park Avenue, Utility Easement, and Bayview Road, South Park Avenue to Bayview Lane. I will open up that public hearing at this point. Is there anyone here who would like to speak during the public hearing on the consideration of Final Resolution 2024-01? Is there anyone who would like to speak? Please come to the microphone and state your name and your address.
My name is Lauren Wall, 653 Belmont Court. I would like to learn with whom we'd have a conversation about an alteration to the engineering drawing.
Okay, thank you. We'll address your concerns at the conclusion. Is there anyone else who would like to speak during the public hearing?
Carl and Elsie Evenson, 657 Belmont Court, here in Neenah. When we came to Neenah 30-some years ago, I was impressed and struck by the historic and quaint wooden curbs 1 block from our house. And I enjoyed that. They eventually disappeared, but I liked that. Our street, Belmont Court, does not have curb currently, and I've been very satisfied that we did not have curb. Our home is close to the street, which is the cul-de-sac at the end of Belmont Court. And I do have concern that any road work at all does invade what has been our front lawn significantly. And I want to share Mr. Lauren Wall's concern about is there any room for amendment to the given plan, which, as I understand them, will come in to our front lawn in a significant way. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? That's quite all right. That's right.
My name is David Oost, 749 Congress Place, and I was wanting to know if any consideration had been made for the Congress Place Boulevard, since it's one way each way. If Cedar Street is torn up, you won't be able to turn around. And the garbage trucks, any other big vehicles, it's only room for pretty much one car if there are cars placed on the road there. So I was just wondering if any consideration had been done to look at Congress Place. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak during the public hearing?
Good evening. Adam Hendricks, 641 Belmont Court, as you've already heard from two of my neighbors on my cul-de-sac here. The theme that keeps coming up is the concern for the curbs that are going to go in, and as was asked earlier, you said that it's going to be addressed later on if there's a possibility of readdressing these suggestions in the proposed plans, right? Is there going to be an open forum for discussion after that, after you go over what you said the opportunity would be there?
Sorry, I'm taking notes.
That's fine.
Thank you for your question. Did you have additional questions, or we'll address them all at the end of the public hearing?
Well,
Instead,
I think
is that an easy question you can just answer, Jerry?
Procedurally, we have the public hearing tonight, obviously. The next step in the process relative to the assessment, which is what the public hearing is directly about tonight, would happen at committee meeting next week at the Public Services Committee, 6:30 next Tuesday. And again, that resolution that will be brought to the committee at that point will be addressing the assessment for the utility work. Relative to road design questions, that I think if you have thoughts on that, whether you leave them with us or relay them to the engineer out at the table, we can look into what the concerns are. This isn't the first time we've had residents with concerns about moving from more of a rural type road section to an urban type section with curb and gutter. There are design and structural considerations that go into why we use the curb and gutter design that we use. So we can certainly have a chat about that if you'd like.
Madam Mayor, may I direct questions? I'm not sure what the procedure you want me to use. Do I need to direct straight to you, or may I direct to?
I think any direct questions probably are, and I'm speaking for myself, certainly, Mayor, tell me if I'm wrong, probably outside of the public hearing discussion, that we should have a conversation on design at that point.
Well, I'll still direct to you, Madam Mayor, then. As far as I understand, this is a public hearing, and it sounds like any questions want to be held outside of the public hearing. So at that point, if I'm being directed that if we want to have any questions or concerns outside of the public hearing, what would be the point of this hearing right now? If I'm saying that we can't have a discussion, and you're saying questions will be answered later, and we don't have the opportunity to rebuttal right now.
I'm sorry, I meant at the conclusion of the public hearing, we would address some of the questions that have been brought forth. It is one answer session
So
at the conclusion right now.
So the conclusion tonight?
Yes.
We'll have another opportunity to come back up and
Yeah.
speak then?
No, not once the public hearing is closed. But you would have another opportunity to speak on Tuesday.
Next
6:30,
Tuesday in
yes.
this building here?
Yes.
Okay, so the question I have for you is, I've spoken with some of the engineers out there, and going off of what Director Kaiser, did I say that correctly? I'm
That's
sorry.
correct.
Okay, Director Kaiser said, they'll take recommendations into account, right? So who has the final say on whether these recommendations take place? Because as far as I understand it, the Department of Public Works makes these recommendations to this council here as a whole, right?
Yes, to the council,
To the council as a whole, and the council votes on whether to do it or not,
the
right?
9 aldermen.
Okay, the 9 aldermen. So the question I have for you also is, how many projects do we have going on right now per public projects, right? How many proposed streets are we working on?
Well, what we're working on for this coming year is fulfilled in this resolution.
The resolution, right? So how many streets are named in that resolution?
Multiple streets are
Is it
named.
common practice of the council to jumble everything in together or vote on it individually? Because it seems like this whole thing is just being packaged together, and there's not much receptiveness or, let's see, yeah, I would use the word receptiveness. I've had discussions with an engineer out there, and I can tell you from a citizen standpoint, it was pretty much talking to a wall. No concern. You've already heard from some of my neighbors up here. Our biggest concern is curbs on the street. So out of the, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 neighbors that are on this street, I can vouch for saying that 4 of the houses say no, 1 is indifferent. 2 of them would support no curbs because the majority of us, the other citizens do, and 1 house I haven't been able to get a hold of. So, as representatives of our city government here, you have an opportunity to hear voice of a street and its citizens that it comes down to, we don't want curbs on this street. Is it going to come down to altercations that can be made to these plans based on the will of the people? I believe that's what the government's put in place for, correct?
I appreciate your comments.
So the question I have for is a couple plans I'll bring up about the street, right? Belmont Court. The plans that want to be put in place is adding curbs to there and gutters to drain. That street, I've talked to some neighbors that have lived there for 30 plus years. They can't remember the last time the street was paved, right? There haven't been any improvements on it. Yes, I will say that there's some potholes on the street and there's some water accumulation that takes place. But I would expect that out of any road that hasn't been repaired in 30 plus years. So the question I have, I'll make it public here, why can't we grade into the park named Quarry Park, which has no drainage issues, and speak for other people on the street too. Some of us don't even have our sump plugs sump pumps plugged in, right? There's not a drainage issue. The ground percolates. The need for the gutters, I don't see it being there, along with losing part of our property, right? So, made my concerns, and you're saying that we can't, the next time that the dialogue is gonna be able to take place is next
Tuesday.
Tuesday? Okay. Thank you for your time.
Yep, thank you. Alderman Stevenson. You wanted to speak?
Nope,
Okay. It looks like you did.
it's a rarity.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak during the public hearing? Just state your name and address, please.
Scott Wolf, 713 South Commercial. Want to address the two things about Commercial Street and Douglas Park.
Right now, we're discussing, it's a public hearing for the final resolution on the street repairs for this coming year.
So this is an inappropriate time for me to bring up any, I have not been able to get any plans or see anything on Commercial Street. And they're,
Yep.
they are bringing
This
in
is,
a thing in
right
Douglas
now, we're
Park.
just covering the public hearing on the final resolution on street repair for this year, but then after that is closed, we'll have the public forum, which would be the time for you to bring up your concern, because it's different than this
So
public
I'm in
hearing.
the wrong time.
Yeah, you're next, though. Sorry about that. Is there anyone else who would like to speak during the public hearing for final resolution 2024-01? Anyone else who would like to speak? Anyone else? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing for consideration of final resolution 2024-01. And we will move on to the public forum, which will be the opportunity for anyone in the audience who would like to speak on any topic of relevance to what the council would be presiding over. So if you have something that you wanted to speak about now. I'm sorry about that.
No worries, I guess I didn't get the agenda. I'm sorry coming in late. I would like to ask a couple questions about and find out if the information on Douglas Street, or Douglas Park and Commercial Street, the renovation of the street, when is that up for final vote or approval?
Again, we open the public forum and you ask your question, and then once everybody has spoken, then we address the questions.
Okay, so I gotta just put all my questions out and
Yes.
then, okay.
Yes.
Then Douglas Park, the watershed survey, and that I have not seen or made public, the problem that you have with the water that's flooding on basically Galloway's, in front of Galloway's property. Why have we not made Galloway take care of the watershed issue that they've created with the non-pervious that they had before the 2003 requirement to have a watershed when they build? They've been grandfathered in it, and the problem's been there because, well, there's a railroad track that used to run through there that's been gone for more than 30 years. And here we are trying to take out a city park that I do believe was donated by the Douglas family to be a park, and now we're talking about making it into a water retention pond rather than keeping it as a park. I don't understand that and think that that's correct, especially since it is a park and they're taking 60% of it, I do believe. This is what I'm finding out without seeing the plans, when all they would have to do is put a trench drain, 4 or 5 foot wide, 4 foot deep. Neenah Foundry loves to sell all the grading that they could possibly put all along that street and have a pump and pump it over to the new retention place that they put for the water that Galloway has to pump their warm water for their evaporators. and they're looking for cool water, well, they could take care of the problem that they've created with their own build that they're improving upon the next 2 blocks that are on the right side. I don't see why we're using city property to take care of a proper problem that is caused by a corporation. So that's the questions I have, and I haven't seen any build plans, and I don't know how I can get my hands onto. I've been a couple of years into the construction trade, and I usually see a state-approved plan, and they have to have a watershed. And the DNR has a survey, and I see the surveys in the back of my backyard, that they're saying that this wetland is, because it has 2 weeks of wet conditions, for 2 weeks it's considered a wetland. Now, wetland would be also considered to be a federal thing. If it had cattails on it, we wouldn't even be discussing this. That's how finicky they are about that, but we're now trying to take and make it into a retention pond. Just like to have some answers about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in the public forum?
Good evening. My name is Kate Hancock Cook. I live at 216 Bosworth Court in Neenah. And I'm also here to talk about the Douglas Park retention pond. I'm here because I have an autistic son. And you may not be aware, but autistic children are 160 times more likely to drown in retention ponds or in bodies of water than neurotypical children. So when I learned about this retention pond, and to be, clear, I'm on the Park and Rec Commission, I'm on the Planning Commission. I understand why we're doing these things. But my concern is that we have this high risk that we're putting into a public park. It's not like our other retention ponds, which are sort of off, in industrial parks or in a place that is highly populated or there's a lot of traffic. Douglas Park, remember Douglas Park, the last time you were there. Were you there? Was there anybody there except the immediate party you came with? It's a pretty low population park. So if a child, autistic children have a much higher tendency to wander, and they are fascinated by water. If a child was wandering around in that area, it is unlikely that there's somebody going to be there to be able to pull them out of that pond. So my concern is that I know we have a lot of water access in Neenah, but those are in much more populated areas, I think, or higher population areas. So I just want us to consider, do we have other options to make this pond in a public park where children are supposed to go and play? Can we make it safer? I know that we are not required to fence it. State regulations do not require. They have regulations on the depth. They have the regulations on the 4-to-1 drop as you go in. You're supposed to plant grasses that will inhibit the access to the pond. But I don't know that that's really enough. And even though the incidence is a very low frequency, low likelihood, it is an extremely high cost incidence. And I would hate for us to come back in 3 or 5 years and say, boy, we really should have put a fence there. We could fence it. We use cameras for a lot of stuff. Is it possible we could have a camera on that pond so we could make sure that it was monitored on a regular basis? Because, as I say, very low population in that park. So I just hope that we'll consider. The other thing I thought about is, well, what else could we do? We could make sure, really pump up the public messaging about water safety, because Neenah has water everywhere. Is there more we could be doing in our schools about water safety awareness? Are there bands kids could wear? I just don't know what all the options are, but I feel like this is something that needs a little bit closer look. I don't want us to look back in 5 years and say, I wish we'd done that. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak during the public forum?
My name is Brian Ray. I reside at 146 Hazel Street. In 1921, Harry Nelson gifted 4.3 acres to Neenah to be used as a park. If this project goes forward, the pond will be maintained by the stormwater utility and not the Parks Department. Additionally, Engineer Kumaro stated that the landscaping will include similar tall prairie and aquatic plants along the safety shelf and all around the pond that will prevent people from getting near the pond. This will make the pond functionally not part of the park anymore, going directly against the wishes of Mr. Nelson. The building of the stormwater pond also calls into question the long-term planning that is going into the stormwater retention and treatment system in Neenah. The Harrison Retention Pond, which is backup for the Douglas Pond, opened less than a year ago at a current but climbing cost of $1.8 million and cannot meet the stormwater needs just 5 blocks away. The park is currently 4.3 acres. According to illustrations, it appears about 30% of the land will be lost to the wet pond area and maybe 50 to 60% will be lost to the safety shelf. This, despite the current comprehensive plan indicating the intent to purchase property near Douglas Park for an expansion. As Director Hayes stated, there is no statutory requirement for the public to be notified, but it seems that transparency with the residents in the following questions would help build trust and confidence. Will the park area that is to be given to the stormwater utility need to be rezoned from R1 residential to I2 general industrial district like the Harrison Retention Pond? This is designated to be designed to be an 8-foot deep pond with 68% of Neenah having less than 2 feet in depth to groundwater. Exactly how many square feet of park will be lost to this pond given the water table in the area? Exactly how many square feet of park will be lost to the safety shelf around the pond? How many cubic feet of water will be from business at peak runoff? How many cubic feet of water will be commercial street produce at peak runoff? How many cubic feet of water will the proposed connection to Henry Street produce at peak runoff? How many cubic feet per hour will this pond be able to filter? How many cubic feet of water will the proposed pond be able to take in before flooding or transferring the Harrison Street pond? And what are the anticipated needs for Neenah stormwater retention and filtration in the next 5, 10, or 20 years? These retention ponds only collect contamination. They do not mitigate pollutants. Are there any plans to expand water treatment facilities to take in and treat stormwater? Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Did you catch all of those questions? Do you want them? Okay. Do you need his list of questions?
If we got it recorded, I can get it that way.
Okay, okay. Is there oh,
Scott Becker, 1061 Green Acres Lane. I grew up on 1415 Henry Street. I am very familiar with this neighborhood. I am very concerned that this park will cause an increase in the poverty rate in this community because, as we've seen, like by the police station, where the average poverty rate is 21%, and this is already a low poverty, high poverty, very middle class, blue collar community that is locked in by the railroad tracks, by Winneconne Avenue, by Cecil Street, and by Commercial Street. So there is no close park for many kids. When I was a kid, this is my park. There used to be a baseball diamond there. I remember picnicking there as a child. I remember it had many more swing sets. Unfortunately, this city has completely not taken this park as an asset, as a jewel. And as one person talked about, and I have an article from 1951 that talked about how that Henry Nelson gave this to the city in 1921. The city wanted to buy it, and he said, I'm donating it because those kids need a park. And nothing has changed since 1921. Those streets were still there in the 20s, that railroad tracks. So I don't want to see this neighborhood has so many neighborhoods in Neenah in the last 5, 10 years have become havens for drug and violence. This is not what our community is about, and that's what I want to see Neenah care about its parks and care about its residents. Thank you.
thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak during the public forum? Anyone else who would like to speak during the public forum? Seeing no one, I will close the public forum. Is there anyone on council who would like to address any of the questions that were put forth? Alderman Lundrum.
Thank you, Mayor. Somebody's alarm. Time to be somewhere. I just want to address Kate Hancock Cook, there you are, your concern about water safety. The YMCA has been given a huge financial gift from a very generous donor, and every third grade class in all of Neenah and Menasha will be attending the Y and learning safety procedures. It's not a swim lesson. It is a safety class where they know what do you do when you're on the edge of the water? How do you hand a stick to a friend who might have fallen in, that type of thing. So both Neenah and Menasha kids all have access to that. So that's going on all the time. It's called Safety Around Water. So that's an awesome program. For the people that wanted to see the diagram of the proposed storm pond, on the minutes of January 30th, Public Services and Safety, it's on here. This is a really nice blown up version of it, but you'll be able to see the same thing on the minutes. And it shows, I'm sure you can't see it, but the safety shelf around here is this green. This is the trail, kind of I think Alderman Hillstrom called it screenings, so real tight gravel. And the swing set will be replaced, and the sign will be replaced. So I actually think it's going to be very, very attractive. So if you want to see this up close, go to the, thank you, whoever just put that up, thank you very much. But if you want to see it at home, go to the Public Services and Safety Committee meeting minutes of January 30th. And you can bring this up at home. And I was also going to answer one of Kate's other concerns too, about Douglas Park not being populated with, walkers and dog walkers and things like that. I live really close to Doty Park, and same thing. There's nobody ever in that park, and that has a direct drop off. I think it might be, I don't know if it's 7 or 9 feet deep immediately. There's no safety shelf. There's no landscaping, there's no nothing. And, you can say that around the rest of the city too, around the waterways, but that one is very, very close to homes. So we have that over there. So this will not be an anomaly. That's all, Mayor, thank you.
Or is there anyone else on council who would like to address any of the issues that were brought forth? Alderman Steiner.
I just know that there were some additional concerns raised during the forum, and I'm wondering if Director Kaiser would want to address them now, or were you thinking as a follow-up just to make sure that we're addressing those individuals' concerns in regards to Douglas Park?
For the public forum, you're saying?
Right, for the public forum, correct?
Well, Mr. Ray had a list of technical data that he was requesting. We'll get the note from the clerk so that I have that list.
Okay. The first speaker, and I apologize, I didn't get the last name.
Scott Wolt.
Relative to Galloway stormwater requirements. Certainly as they are developing plans for their future, obviously they've acquired a number of properties there and removed those houses. In that area, they've actually reduced impervious. with their earlier addition on the west side of their building. That probably goes back 10 years or so. They did put in dry storage as part of that project. So they have been addressing, as they've done their projects, they've been addressing the stormwater requirements as they stand. Certainly, historic discharge from the original, similar to as we have around the city as we're trying to address these stormwater needs. That historic original, I guess, kind of impervious area discharge, that's what we're addressing with the facilities that we're constructing, with the Harrison Pond, with the proposed Douglas Pond, with other ponds that we've constructed in that are serving developed areas. So those facilities are accomplishing the needs for the original sites as they were in place in 2003. But anything that gets built after that has to account for that new impervious area that's getting developed. And their engineers are working with our staff, and they are meeting the requirements that they are facing.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there anyone else on council who would like to address any of the issues brought up during the public forum? Alderman Stevenson.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Jerry, for years and years and years, state of Wisconsin has forced municipalities to react to legislation that they've created regarding stormwater management in their urban areas. I know the city, part of the reason that the Neenah Foundry site was so attractive was because it allowed us to meet some of the criteria that the state of Wisconsin had given us to create stormwater areas in our developed, mature areas. And while the gift of Mr. Nelson back in 1921 is certainly appreciated and is not, and by this action is not intended to be disrespectful to it. In fact, part of this project is to develop and preserve additional dollars so that parkland can be relocated to other areas within the city where it meets the 2024 rationale for developing new area as relates to old areas. So this Douglas Park property, my question, there is a question here. So is this Douglas Park site, well, give me some feedback as to the advantage of the city to take this site and to help meet our state requirement for stormwater management. Is this relevant? Is this needed? What does it do for our long-term? Because I'm still under the impression that we going to be spending millions of dollars at some point, depending on which party's in control in Madison. The requirements ebb and flow based on who's in charge, but if a certain party gets back in control, the requirement may bludgeon again to be quite costly. So while this does, so there is a question there. But while this does address a specific development in that area, eventually at some point it would help go a long way to meet stormwater management citywide. That's, I guess, any comments on that, Jerry?
I'll start back with a comment I think Mr. Ray had made about stormwater treatment. Probably 15 years ago, one of our former engineers, given the kind of state of flux with stormwater regulations had, I think, jokingly said, we're at a point where we maybe should just build a stormwater treatment plant instead of constructing all these other individual sites. Now, of course, with that comes the conveyance and getting things to a site where a plant would make any sense and the cost of a plant. So that was kind of a ridiculous comment, but kind of striking in that we are taking a lot of effort to improve the quality and quantity of water going to the Neenah Slough, which is ultimately where this pond water would go, the Fox River and Lake Winnebago. And we have requirements from the DNR for each of those 3 water bodies that we need to satisfy. This particular site at Douglas Park, we had been looking at something to address the flooding on South Commercial Street for some time, and that flooding occurs right near where this park is. So we had been exploring some alternatives for at least addressing that flooding control in that area. Now, as discussions have occurred and other needs have been brought in, it becomes desirable if we're handling flood control, can we do something to improve the quality of the water coming out of that? And, does that help us out then down the line with the Harrison Street Pond, and possibly by taking some of this water that currently goes to Harrison Street in a dirty state, controlling that quality and quantity going to Harrison Street from this area, does that open up an avenue for us to bring a different part of the city's stormwater that currently doesn't go to Harrison Street, but to go into that pond and still have it handle things and treat it? So it kind of expands our reach with that Harrison Street pond beyond what it is right now. So that's kind of a long roundabout way of saying that the Douglas site is a desirable site for treatment, and it does help us down the line too with our other facilities.
Anything additional, Alderman Stevenson?
Oh, I'm done, thank you.
Okay. Alderman Hillstrom?
Thank you, Mayor. This, is an issue that lots of cities struggle with, not just Neenah. In urban centers, what do you do with the stormwater? What do you do with problems? Here we have this park, which works out well for us because it sure works out better than buying a block of houses and building a pond there, and the cost of doing that and uprooting all the homeowners. So this works out really well for our city, and this has been studied for years, and so it's the best way of going, my feelings. Thank you.
Is there anyone else on council who would like to comment about public forum issues?
There was a question of whether a rezoning was required for this project. It would not. I believe a strong majority, I can't confirm that, of our stormwater ponds are actually in single-family neighborhoods. So there is no rezoning request. And just a point of reference, I also believe my understanding is this property was initially provided to the city for a municipal garage facility, not for a park. Became a park in 1949 is my understanding, according to The Parks of Neenah, written by former Parks Director Bill Dunwoody.
Any additional comments, questions, or concerns from council? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, the consent agenda. Is there any objection to unanimous consent of the consent agenda? That's approval of temporary Class B license application to St. Gabriel's Church for Friday Fish Fry to be held on February 9th, 16th, 23rd, and March 1st and 8th. Second item, approve the renewal of secondhand dealer license for J. Anthony Jewelers for the 2024 licensing year. Is there any objection to unanimous consent of those two items? Seeing none, those are approved. The next item on the agenda, reports of standing committees. The regular Public Services and Safety Committee meeting of January 30th, 2024. Chairman Lendrum.
Thank you, Mayor. I hope all of you stay because this is going to be exciting. My report from Public Services and Safety. I am reporting out from the regular Public Services and Safety Committee meeting of January 30th, 2024. Minutes can be found on the website. If you cannot find those minutes that I was talking about or any minutes, please call me. My number is public record. You just Google Carrie Lendrum and it pops right up. Call me and I'll walk you through it because if you can't find it, I want you to be able to find it, okay? So give me a call. We have 9 items tonight, so let's get started. Item number 1. Committee recommends council approve memorandum of agreement with Galloway Company relative to the construction of the Douglas Park Pond, and I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Lendrum, seconded by Alderman Weber. Is there any discussion on this item? Alderman Stevenson.
Thank you, Mayor. This isn't really relevant to the memorandum of an agreement, but as a follow-up to the discussion, Director Kaiser sent a memo out to the council regarding the process of hiring a consultant for this. I'd like to ask the chairperson, Lendrum, to include a agenda item on the Public Services and Safety Committee to discuss the procedures and reaffirm what our process is for hiring engineers and whatnot. I don't know what the expectation is. I don't know if Westwood is part of our South Commercial Street engineering firm, and we're dovetailing with that or what. But I think as I lead the council, I think I owe it to the council to make sure they understand what their role is in approving contracts of subcontractors. So I would ask that we do that.
Sure, we can add it to either the next agenda or the one after.
Thank you.
Alderman Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to, it's good practice to explain your vote. And my vote is going to be no on this for many reasons, but particularly because I agree with 2 of the individuals that spoke this evening and others that I just won't say. But my vote is going to be no on this.
Alderman Skirms.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of comments. I wasn't sure what all this entailed, but after looking into the minutes from the Park Commission, looking at the minutes from Public Service Safety, it illuminates this, makes it a little more clear. And I don't think the few questions that have been answered in this forum accurately reflect sort of the benefits of this, to my knowledge. I mean, it will remain a park if this is passed. It's not being turned into something other than a park. It will be a park with a pond. The picnic shelter and restrooms remain. The picnic tables remain. The playground remains. The plan is for the majority of the trees remain. So it will continue to be a park. This fills a need that we have. Flooding of Commercial Street is not acceptable, and if we're going to spend a whole bunch of money fixing Commercial Street, now's the time to address this problem. the Park Commission recommended this go forward. 7 voted for it and 1 abstained. There was no votes against this. Public Services and Safety, all 5 of the members voted to recommend this. And they've looked into this far more than I have. They know the details more than I have. But it seems like it fits a need. The fact that there's going to be money coming out of this to be spent for future park acquisitions for park improvements is a bonus. So I will be voting in favor of this. Thank you.
Alderman Lundrum.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to do a little bit of an explanation about when we read out for standing committees. I handed out a bunch of the agendas. They're on that back wall, if I didn't give you one. So as I read these, it will look like we are rubber stamping them because I'm reading them. We passed it in committee or didn't. Most times they pass here, but what you don't see is the committee level and where we are hashing out detail after detail after detail and asking our staff very in-depth, detailed questions. So this is just a result, when we read out from these standing committees, they're just a result from the intense committee meetings. So if you wanted to sign up for and attend the committee meetings, I think you would find them much more interesting than a council meeting because you have missed then all of that discussion. So I just wanted to explain that before I went forward on this. Thank you, Mayor.
Is there any further discussion? Alderman Skirms.
Thank you, Mayor. Just point of clarification, you do not need to sign up to show up for any meeting. Just show up.
But if you sign up for email, then you'll know when the meetings are. And I can help you
That's
with
what
that.
you were saying.
The reminder, then you get a
Got it.
reminder.
Okay.
And I can help you
I
with signing up.
apologize.
No, nobody needs to sign up in order to come.
No.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device for the approval of the memorandum of agreement with Galloway Company relative to the construction of the Douglas Park Pond. That motion passes 7-1.
Item number 2, committee recommends council approve the purchase of 2 2025 Ford hybrid police utility cars, 1 2024 Ford F-150 training lieutenant pickup truck, 2 2024 civilian Ford Explorers, and 1 2024 Ford F-150 police responder pickup truck, all from Bergstrom Automotive. This is after getting several quotes, that was not the only one they called. And to include all equipment and changeover costs not to exceed the approved 2024 capital improvement equipment budgeted amount of $357,913, and I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Lundrum, seconded by Alderman Stevenson. Is there any discussion on this item? Alderman Lundrum.
And again, the police department is here if anybody has any questions on any of these vehicles.
Are there any other questions? I'm not going to read out the entire motion again, but I would ask now that you cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
Item number 3, committee recommends council approve Phase 2 of the police department's remodel of the briefing room, gym, mat room, and patrol supervisor's office in the amount of $170,000 with funding coming from the capital facilities budget, and I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Lundrum, seconded by Alderman Hillstrom. Alderman Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just curious if I could get a total on that capital facilities budget.
The facilities for this particular project?
No, after the funds are dedicated and approved for this, what is the total in that account? Is it a zero balance? Are we using all of the funds? Is there some left over? Like,
If you approve the $170,000, I have not borrowed for that yet. It would be, that's the whole project, 170,000.
It's a separate line item in the capital
In the- yeah,
improvement budget.
in the
so
capital.
It's $170,000.
thank you.
Yep.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
Item number 4 is for Public Works. Committee recommends council approve the purchase of a 2023 GMC Sierra 1500 pickup truck from Holiday Automotive, Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, in the amount of $43,705, and the purchase of a safety lighting package, two-way radio, and toolboxes to outfit the truck with a not-to-exceed cost of $5,000, all to be funded by the 2024 capital equipment funds, and I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Lindrum, seconded by Alderman Steiner. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
Item number 5, committee recommends council approve the purchase of a 2024 Ford 350 chassis from Ewald Automotive Group, Hartford, Wisconsin, in the amount of $52,210 to be funded by 2024 capital equipment funds, and I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Lendrum, seconded by Alderman Hillstrom. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
Item number 6, committee recommends council approve the purchase of a John Deere 624P HL wheel loader from Brooks Tractor Incorporated, De Pere, Wisconsin, in the amount of $269,000. The snowplow and wing package from Monroe Truck Equipment, De Pere, Wisconsin, in the amount of $53,306, and approve the purchase of pallet forks and other accessories with a not-to-exceed cost of $25,000, all to be funded by the 2024 capital equipment funds, and I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Lendrum, seconded by Alderman Stevenson. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
Item number 7, committee recommends council approve the purchase of a 2024 International Single Axle Chassis from Packer City Trucks, Appleton, Wisconsin, in the amount of $113,997, and approve the purchase of the equipment package from Monroe Truck Equipment, De Pere, Wisconsin, in the amount of $128,870, all to be funded by the 2024 capital equipment funds, and I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Lendrum, seconded by Alderman Weber. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
Item number 8, committee recommends council approve the purchase of a 2024 International Tandem Axle Chassis from Packer City Trucks, Appleton, Wisconsin, in the amount of $124,917, and approve the purchase of the equipment package from Monroe Truck Equipment, De Pere, Wisconsin, in the amount of $140,458, all to be funded by the 2024 capital equipment funds, and I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Lendrum,
Second.
seconded by Alderman Stevenson. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
And item number 9, and the last, this is the automatic trash refuse truck. It doesn't say that on there. Committee recommends council approve the purchase of a 2023 New Way Sidewinder ASL truck from Envirotech Equipment, Menominee Falls, Wisconsin, in the amount of $352,797, and approve the purchase of new radio equipment, the city logos, and additional lighting with a not-to-exceed cost of $3,500. And I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Lendrum, seconded by Alderman Hillstrom. Is there any discussion on this item? Alderman Skirms.
Is this additional capacity or is this replacing existing?
This is a replacement.
Thank you.
Alderman Stevenson.
Thank you, Mayor. I see a lot of puzzled looks out in the, well, not a lot, but a couple. And I just wanted to comment that we did spend a lot of money tonight. And that's by design, really. The 2024 budget was approved late last year, and our staff has been busy trying to get ahead of the supply chain issues with a lot of this equipment. So that's the reason we're spending all this money tonight, so we can get it on order and get the equipment here and utilizing it. And it's not like we spend this kind of money every week. So
Absolutely not. Alderman Lendrum.
And the other thing, too, is our city garage superintendent went into great detail about how he struggles to find this equipment. It's very, very hard to find. Sometimes he almost has to do piecemeal. And so he has to also lock in pricing. And if he doesn't, you know, these pricing will just explode. So he's locked him in now after tonight. But some of these he won't get delivery until 2025. So it's becoming increasingly more expensive and more difficult to get these pieces of equipment. So
Thank you, Alderman Lendrum and Alderman Stevenson, for your good explanations. Are there any further questions? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
and that's the last of my report.
It's an incredibly long report.
Yes,
Thank you for
exciting
that report.
though.
The next item on the agenda, the regular Finance and Personnel Committee meeting of January 29th was canceled, so there is no report. Alderman Stevenson, are you able to give the report for Neenah Menasha Fire Rescue Joint Finance and Personnel Committee?
Sure.
Thank you.
Neenah Menasha Fire Rescue Joint Finance Personnel Committee met January 23rd with 4 action items coming out of that meeting. Item number 1, the committee recommends that both councils actually carry forward, Neenah and Menasha carry forward $2,512 from the software budget for final payment of an update to our interface scheduling software with the city's payroll system. And that's account number is listed there, and they want to carry that forward from 23 to 24, and I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Stevenson, seconded by Alderman Skirms. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
The committee also recommends that both councils approve the carry, well, actually, this is a City of Neenah item. Approve the carry forward of $8,000 from the burn, I guess this is both councils. Burn building maintenance account to cover the cost of new windows that were ordered in September but won't be delivered until second quarter of 2024. And I would make a motion to approve the carry forward of $8,000 to do that.
There's a motion by Alderman Stevenson, seconded by Alderman Boyette. Is there any discussion on this item? Any questions? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
The committee also recommends councils approve the filling of one vacancy that was created by a resignation, and they recommend filling it no earlier than March 1st of 2024, and I would so move to authorize that filling that vacancy.
There's a motion by Alderman Stevenson, seconded by Alderman Boyette. Is there any discussion on that item? Any questions on that? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
And the last item, the committee recommends that both councils approve the proposal for one 2027 Impel Ascend mid-mount platform fire truck from Pierce Manufacturing and the related equipment for a cost not to exceed $2,200,000, and to authorize our finance directors to review financing options and to approve the most advantageous financial option for both cities, up to and including authorization to pre-sign that contract pending council approval to avoid a 1.1% increase. That is $20,000 as of February 1st of 2024. The committee asked that the chief go ahead and do that. I'll make a motion to formalize that request. This is a supply chain issue. We ordered the truck now, and we won't get it until 2027. I'll make that motion. Did I do it? I did. Thank you.
There's a motion by Alderman Stevenson, seconded by Alderman Boyette. And I sat here kind of shaking my head. It wasn't because I disagree with this at all, but just the whole situation that we've been facing as a municipality with supply chain issues and inflation. It is very difficult. So I really appreciate all the efforts on the part of the Neenah Menasha Joint Finance and Personnel Committee and the Fire Department to make this happen. Alderman Hillstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wondering if we could give an estimate on how this cost would be shared between the city of Menasha and Neenah.
Sure. Right now, with the 2024 cost share, we pay 60.37%, so it would be roughly about $1,328,000. They were, the chief and I have talked, and we feel that we probably would use this when the expenditure comes, because we won't be paying anything up front, that we would use whatever year's share it is. And it's usually still around 60-40, but it's going to be a 27 expenditure. So, it'd be roughly that much.
Alderman Stevenson.
Yeah, Vicki, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the merger agreement with the city of Menasha dictates that we review the cost sharing, the 4 attributes of the cost sharing formula every year, and usually in the first quarter after we get all the numbers from the previous year.
That's correct.
Yeah, so that, and I've been on that committee since its inception 15 years ago, and it's never varied more than our share is always between 60 and 61%.
Right. So it's going to be.
I don't think we ever reached 61, and we never got to 60. It was ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
Alderman Skirms.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure if this is for Director Rasmussen or council to explain to those present how this works, that we're not actually committing funds, because we can't do that for 27, but we're authorizing ordering this with the caveat that the vendor understands a council down the road will have to actually pay for the invoice. Could someone clarify that, please?
Sure. I did talk to the city attorney, and we did talk about having a clause in the contract just to say to be approved by a future council. This is very unprecedented times that we don't get something the same year we order it, ever since our supply chain issues.
But we've done this before. This is not the first time we've had to do this.
I don't know that we've ever had to do this for a piece of equipment like this, but this is akin to what we do in real estate purchases all the time. which, you know, we might enter into in January and not close till November or whatever. And that we always put in there that it's subject to approval, ultimate approval by the council.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Stevenson.
Yeah, I would, we've been forced to do it with fire equipment the last 2 years, on our last 2 purchases because of supply chain due to, well, we can blame the pandemic, but supply chain, nobody's carrying any inventory anymore. They found out they can operate without having to carry inventory, so why carry inventory? So, and it's not, you know, we can be worried about the vendor, having to recognize that this council can't commit dollars, but we can sign contracts. So we sign a contract, and somebody's going to have to hold true to that contract. And it's not like Pierce isn't dealing with any other municipality based on supply chain. And so this is something that's becoming very familiar to them.
Thank you for that explanation. Are there any further questions? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
Well, the fire department's out of money, so that concludes my report.
Thank you for your report. Next item, reports of special committees and liaisons, regular plan commission meeting of January 30th. I see that there is no report. Is that correct?
That is correct. No items are coming to council. We'll just be within the planning commission discussion.
Thank you. Board of Public Works meeting of January 23rd, Vice Chairman Hillstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Minutes from this meeting can also be found on the city website. 3 informational items this evening and 2 council action items. First informational item is the board approved pay request number 1, contract 2-23W West Side Booster Station Building Construction to RJM Construction LLC in the amount of $98,144.50. The second item, the board approved change order number 2, Neenah Creek Bridge to Pfeiffer Brothers in the amount of $11,872.15. A third item, the board approved pay request number 2, Neenah Creek Bridge to Pfeiffer Brothers in the amount of $156,025.15. Now for the 2 council action items. The first one, the board recommends council approve pay request number 7 and final pay request for Arrowhead Pier kayak launch from Linda Construction Company, Black River Falls, Wisconsin, in the amount of $31,393.11 for retainage held on the project completed in September of 2023, utilizing approved budgeted CIP carry forward funds, and I would so move.
So motion by Alderman Hillstrom, seconded by Alderman Weber. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
The second and last item this evening, the board recommends council approve final pay request, contract 2-23, street and utility construction on Brantwood Court, Brantwood Drive, Charles Court, Hughes Court, Memorial Court, and Patrick Court to David Tenner Corporation in the amount of $90,515.21, and I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Hillstrom, seconded by Alderman Lendrum. Is there any discussion on this item? Any questions? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
That concludes my report, Mayor.
Thank you for your report. The next item on the agenda, the Community Development Authority report from the CDA, Director Hayes.
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, the CDA met on Monday. No action items from CDA. However, they did review a number of projects that staff is working on, including preliminary work on the new parking structure in the downtown. A lot of that information is planned to come to committee on Tuesday, barring any unforeseen circumstances. So stay tuned.
Thank you. Sustainable Neenah Committee. Whoops.
I think might be worthwhile mentioning that the annual report is out from CDA and available.
You should have all received, in fact, I meant to bring hard copies, but
Yep.
you should all have received an email, I believe you did. Thank you. Thank you, staff. An email on the issuance of our annual reports. There's some good information in there. It's always a little surprising to me when I look back at those, at the amount of work that we handle in one year, but when you have time, take a look.
Next item, Sustainable Neenah Committee, Alderman Lundrum.
Thank you, Mayor. Exciting news. We have a possible new member named Holly, and when she gets confirmed, I will tell you why it's exciting and why she will be a very valuable member to the Sustainable Neenah. She's already given us reports that she's done, so it's just kind of amazing. So I just wanted everyone to to have a heads up that farmers markets coming up, we will have a booth on using rain barrels and possibly how to get a free rain barrel. So stay tuned on that. Safe biking, recycling news, new recycling news, solar energy, and pollinator information. And that will all be upcoming. The dates will be solidified, but they are coming. That's it.
Thank you for your report. Council President Borchert is excused this evening, so I will read his report for the Bergstrom Mahler Museum. Their upcoming exhibition is the 2024 Fox Valley Area High School Glass Exhibition from February 23rd to April 1st. They also have an exhibition, The Language of Light, Stephanie Sarah Life Shoots from April 26th to October 13th. Their community event, Art After Dark Women's History Month, is on March 21st from 6 to 8 p.m. And they just want to express a thank you to all who bought tickets to this Saturday's Crystal Ball event that they are holding. They are sold out, and it is sure to be an amazing evening. So that is the Bergstrom Mahler report. The next item on the agenda is the Parks and Recreation Commission. Alderman Weber.
Thank you, Mayor. The Park and Rec Commission met on January 18th. The minutes can be found on the city website. First off, we had an appearance from a citizen, Miss Jill Fritz, and she's advocating that we consider a recognition for those that have served the conflict of global war and terrorism, similar to how we, recognize folks from all the other conflicts historically. So the Park and Rec Commission is going to take that up as a future agenda item, so more to come there. From the business item perspective, the first item discussed was Douglas Park and the stormwater utility, and we had plenty of discussion on that earlier tonight. The Park and Rec Commission also signed the agreement with the YMCA for the use of the Memorial Park shelters through the summer. So that was a business item completed. And then there was discussion around updates on the Doty shoreline discussion, some of the permitting and grant writing that's coming up this year, and the amount of work that Director Kading and staff are going through to prepare for that. So, and then lastly, just an informational topic, the Carpenter Preserve Planning session has been scheduled for this Thursday at the Memorial Park Tuller Shelter, 5:30 p.m. kickoff, going to 7 o'clock. So folks that might want to attend that for information's sake or maybe to volunteer are welcome to attend. And that concludes my report.
Thank you for your report. Are there any petitions? No petitions. There are no petitions. Are there any council directives? Seeing none, is there any unfinished business? Alderman Steiner.
This is just a little bit more of an update. I'd mentioned looking into Sister City for Neenah on the last session. Alderman Weber and I are partnering on this effort. We found an organization called Sister City International that actually walks through the requirements and talks about the steps that a community would take. I know Appleton has a couple sister cities. We reached out just really as an information gathering exercise. We sent them an email. Haven't received anything yet, but it's only been a couple days, hasn't been long, but we'll keep everyone updated on that. It seems like an interesting, neat program. It's an opportunity to collaborate with a different country, learn from each other, and possibly even exchange from a commerce perspective as well. So there's some nice opportunities to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional unfinished business? Is there any new business? I've got one item just to let you all know. The final adopted budget books are printed and available for all of you to pick up from Director Rasmussen at your convenience. Is there any additional new business? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
There's a motion to adjourn by Alderman Stevenson,
Second?
seconded by Alderman Weber. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, we are adjourned.
The City of Neenah is pleased to provide video recordings of City Council meetings. Neenah residents can get information about City Council meetings, City Committee meetings, meeting agendas, and other documents from the City website, www.neenahgov.org. Neenah residents can express their opinions about city issues by contacting the mayor's office, contacting their city alderman, or completing the electronic feedback form on the city website. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited.